And we are back. Paul Fabrizio, Don Frazier, doing the Constitution line by line. We're now deep into the amendments. We're in the 14th Amendment, which we've had to break into 6 different parts. So now we're in Part B.
Yes. And Part B is going to sound familiar. It's going to sound like part of the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right.
So, we ready?
Hit us.
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
So all we're doing here is incorporating
Big word.
federal law into state law, making it be part of each state law.
Okay, all we're doing?
Well,
I
say that. This is huge.
This is huge. To understand what's taking place is we have our rights and liberties provided by the Constitution. That is a protection from the federal government, a protection against the federal government.
Correct.
Saying, remember all those times where it says Congress shall make no law. Now, what the 14th Amendment does is takes the next step, and it says, states, you can't do that either.
Yeah.
And so what this set in motion is a gradual, piece-by-piece incorporation of our rights into state constitutions.
Correct. Dismantling what had been the realm of state prerogatives.
You got it. So back before the 14th Amendment, you had freedom of speech and that protection from the federal government.
So it wasn't a federal crime that you were committing.
Right.
But it might be a state crime.
It might have been a state crime. You had the right to an attorney for federal crimes, but not necessarily for state crimes. The 14th Amendment comes along, and the 14th Amendment says, sorry, now those federal rights can be put into state constitutions.
Not can be, but will be.
Well, it's a step-by-step process.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't just, okay, they're automatically in there. What it's meant is that the Supreme Court has come along and said, okay, this is incorporated, this is not incorporated.
Okay.
And so it's got to be done that way. And so as we talked about with the 7th Amendment to the Constitution, the 7th Amendment has never been incorporated into state constitutions. So jury trials for civil cases, well, it depends on what state you're in.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but at the national level, you're going to have a jury trial for civil cases. But that hasn't been incorporated. But most of the rest of the Bill of Rights has been incorporated. Okay?
Interesting.
Yeah, this is giving the power to the Supreme Court, giving the power to the national government to take away states' rights. And the Supreme Court has done it slowly but deliberately. I believe the first time they did it was in 1919. But I'm not positive about that. And that would involve First Amendment freedom of speech rights. But again, I'm not positive about that.
Well, and understanding that a bunch of the offending states that this is really aimed at are all rebuilding their state constitutions. So if nothing else, this sent a very clear shot across the bow that this needs to be part of whatever your new state constitution is, or you're probably not going to be readmitted.
Yeah.
And states were trying to figure out how to reassert the old order, how to bring the old South back in a new sort of environment. And part of that was to strip the emancipated peoples of their power. And this amendment says, no, you can't.
You can't do it.
You can't do it. If the federal government can't do it, state governments can't either.
Yeah, so there is a real tug of war between the federal government and the state government as they're going about this. State governments are trying to write their constitutions in ways that will allow them to do some things that they wanted to do. And the federal government is like saying, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, correct.
You can't do that. Stop it.
As one observer said, if Southerners had known that this was what was at stake,
they wouldn't have surrendered.
Well, they might have tried harder to take Culp's Hill, So who knows? But it's interesting how this is a categorical, catastrophic dismantling of that state and federal relationship that had existed all the way up to 1861.
Yeah, and that dismantling, I mean, you could argue, still continues to this day.
Yeah, we're still reconstructing.
Yeah, in one way or another.
In one way or the other.
Yeah. So anyway, simple words that are familiar to us from the Fifth Amendment, but now they mean something much different because the states now would lose their ability to deny people rights because they're guaranteed in the federal Constitution, and the Supreme Court was going to incorporate those rights into state constitutions.
All right.
So
easy enough and complicated enough.
yeah, we'll be back.
We'll be back with the next part.